resume building. Or in Korean, you might have heard is spek을 쌓다. Yes, this involves your GPA, your extracurricular activities, and, your language test scores, things like that, among a whole host of other things. But for students and job seekers in Busan, even taking classes for these exams is getting harder and harder. So some students are therefore saying that just living in Seoul gives you a leg up in job applications. And this regional imbalance is just the beginning of a bigger problem for the entire country. I'm Catherine. This is Morning Wave in Busan on Monday, October 14th on BEFM, 부산영어방송. Good morning, Wavers. I hope you had a wonderful weekend and are ready to start off and kick off our Monday morning together. By the way, let me ask you, Wavers out there, do we have any students or job seekers among our listeners? Well, for those of you who are already in the workforce, do you remember those days, the days where you were, back in the day, we would say pounding the pavement. It's a phrase, but basically where you were seeking a job. Well, many of you probably had to get some sort of English proficiency test score, assuming that you live in Korea, and many of you likely attended English classes to study for those types of exams. But apparently, this market is getting smaller and smaller, which may be surprising given South Korea's huge private education market. But for this very specific market, large English or foreign language academies, hagwons for adults in Busan, it's a tough market. Recently, the Gwangbuk branch of a very large brand name English academy shut down. Another one near Busan National University, PNU, is planning on shutting its doors as well. So this isn't just a business story, but it might be a reflection of the declining youth population here in Busan and how this can disadvantage job seekers in our city. Getting that, TOEIC score, that high one, is conventionally considered kind of one of the first baby steps in the job-seeking process. And not having access to these types of really good resources, including these academies, can delay this process, and it increases fears that these local job seekers may get left behind even further in this rat race. So, this regional imbalance affects the locals in many aspects, and while we're by no means encouraging private education, we're not saying, we need to boost private education. But, that's a reality. In Korea, if you need to study or prep for an exam, yes, some people study on their own with books off the internet, and some people do go to these hagwons, right? This is certainly something to think about. Well, for today's text topic, we're going to talk about something that's been so hot lately, books. I mean, definitely autumn, fall, usually we talk about, fall into reading. It's kind of a play on words. But, given the hubbub, the discussion around books lately, what is your favorite book? Or who's your favorite author? Maybe you can tell us about a book that you have read recently, or book or books that are on your to-read list. A book that you're really looking forward to getting your hands on and reading. 자, 오늘 주제는 책입니다. 네, 내 인생의 책, 최근에 읽은 책, 읽고 싶은 책, 혹은 작가, 좋아하는 작가 있을 수도 있잖아요. Maybe you have a favorite, author and you're like, hey, anytime this author publishes anything, I'm there. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to borrow it. I'm going to read it. So let me know through our BFM live stream, live chat on YouTube. So go to the YouTube platform, search for BEFM or 부산영어방송, and then you can subscribe, log in, and chat away. Also, on your phone, pound 9050, shop 9050. That's going to cost you 100 won. And you can also reach me for free through our Kakao Talk channel. So same thing, search for BEFM or 부산영어방송. And the ways you can listen to us. You can listen to us on the radio here in the Busan area, 90.5, 103.3 FM. Also, like I said, through the YouTube platform, we're streaming live as we speak. And Also, we have the Patbang app. So many different ways. We also have our own app, the BFM app as well. You can download that. All right, so let's get to our lineup for Monday morning. Here we go. We have Joffrey in hour number 1 for Fun Facts and Trivia, FFT. And then we have Showbiz Buzz with Michael. That is coming up in hour number 2. And for a special interview, we have another special treat for you. As you know, last week it was all about Han Kang making history as the first South Korean author, first Asian woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. So we have scheduled to be on air with us one of her translators, Paige Morris. She's going to be joining us in hour number 2 to discuss her collaboration, her work with Han Kang on translating one of her latest, We Do Not Part. That is the name of the English title, 작별하지 않는다, 번역 작가님. In hour number 2, she's going to be on air with us, so please stay tuned throughout the next 2 hours, and I'll be back with today's headlines. It is now 7:06, and these are today's headlines. North Korea ordered artillery corps near border to fully prepare to shoot. North Korea said yesterday it has ordered its artillery corps near the border with South Korea to fully prepare to shoot after the North threatened a horrible disaster over the alleged flight of drones over its capital. South Korea-U.S.-Japan summit expected near end of year. The leaders of South Korea, the United States, and Japan are expected to hold a trilateral summit near the end of this year upon a proposal from U.S. President Joe Biden. Early voter turnout for by-elections come to 8.98%. The voter turnout for early voting for the October 16th by-elections came to 8.98% for Friday and Saturday, said the National Election Commission. H5N3 avian influenza confirmed in South Korea for first time. The nation's first case of highly pathogenic H5N3 avian influenza AI has been confirmed in wild bird feces collected from Kunsan, as authorities called for thorough quarantine at poultry farms across the country. UN peacekeepers say Israeli tanks forcibly entered base in southern Lebanon. The UN peacekeeping mission in Lebanon has said 2 Israeli tanks destroyed a gate and forcibly entered their base as Israel's ground operation against Hezbollah moved deeper into Lebanese territory. And these are today's headlines. It's time to say hi to Haley on this Monday morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, so of course we're talking about books. We're still in that phase, that mode, that's
I'm still waiting
mood.
for my my orders of Han Kang books to come in. I think this Thursday. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Everything's on back order.
Everything. I mean, which by the way, because no one bought books anymore, and at least until last Thursday, whenever you bought books online from one of the major retailers, it was same day delivery.
I know, but
or
not
like next
anymore.
morning delivery. But it makes me so happy. It makes like my bookworm's heart full. Of like,
Yes.
oh yay, people are ordering books.
On the other hand, we gotta wait, right?
Well, that's fine. I have all the stacks of books I've bought and haven't read. So,
Yes,
I
yes.
can get to those.
All right. So speaking of books, is there a book that I know you're an avid reader, you're a voracious reader, you read a lot, but something you have on your list, to read list?
Well, I just finished. I'm fully on the Han Kang bandwagon. I think I'm driving that bandwagon, or at least like backseat driving it. I just finished 작별하지 않는다, We Do Not Part. Literally on we had this conversation on our Kakao chat because we confirmed our interview with the translator on, what was it, Saturday?
It was over
and
the weekend.
I was at a cafe when that message came in.
You were reading it, right?
I just finished it. And I was writing in my reading journal. So that's the book I just finished, 작별하지 않는다. And then I've ordered Han. So that's the other book, another book by Han Kang. So I think that's on my next list.
I see. So you're fully in that mode, right?
Very excited.
Yes. So once again, stay tuned for our number 2, our special interview with one of our translators. And in the meantime, let's dive into our Busan Updates, the 29th Busan International Film Festival. BIF. It's gone. It came to an end on Friday. So we're going to look back at this year as the festival prepares for the big 30 years next year.
Right. So the 10-day film festival wrapped up last week. It was, by most accounts, a smashing success of having had the highest audience numbers, the highest ticket sales ever.
Right.
So let's look at some final figures from the festival. The organizing committee said that it screened 224 films from 63 countries, and over 145,000 people saw these movies. And on average theater had 84% of its seats filled, which is pretty good. In terms of the awards and accolades, the Asian Filmmaker of the Year award went to the Japanese director Kurosawa Kiyoshi. The Korean Cinema Award was given posthumously to late actor Lee Sun-gyun. The New Currents Award, which honors new Asian directors, it went to jointly Park Gi-young for The Land of Morning Calm and Ma Naing for Ma, or The Cry of Silence.
Yes.
Also, once again, the film festival, that figure of having achieved the biggest ticket sales ever, that comes amid there being massive budget cuts from the government, not only for BIF, but also for most film festivals.
Right.
And the organizers did apologize for the initial glitch in the online ticket system. And also, there were people just couldn't get tickets, period, because it was so popular. And they said they will go through extensive internal discussions to prevent this from happening.
Right. And as I just mentioned, next year is the big 30 years BIF. But it's so different in so many different ways.
Right. So firstly, there are going to be more changes coming as we get to next year. But firstly, BIF was always synonymous with early October. Not for the 3-0. The date will be different because Chuseok comes at an odd time for BIF and also other events. The festival will start on September 17th. So keep that in mind. If you are a cinephile who does plan on coming to Busan in time for BIF, get your tickets for mid-September.
Okay.
And also it will open a new category for Best Asian Film.
So once again, that's coming up next year. Heads up, September. Next, there's been a series of court cases involving heads of local governments here in Busan.
Right. So as you said, we are in the middle of the by-elections. Of course, the one in Kumjonggu going on right now is to elect a new head of the district who has unfortunately passed away last year. However, we might be seeing by-elections because 4 district heads are facing criminal charges or have been convicted. So there are 16 districts and counties in Busan with their respective heads of government each. However, 4 of them, so a quarter, are under trial. So Busan's regional prosecution, they've indicted Gangseogu's district chief Kim Hyung-chan, Sahagu's district chief Lee Gap-jun, both for violation of election law. So Kim is facing allegations of having campaigned for his district's lawmaker, Kim Do-up, during the general elections, which would violate the law that requires public officials to be politically neutral.
Yes.
And also, Lee allegedly called an executive of a local institution and asked for their support of a candidate running for the lawmaker's office, also which would be in violation of election law. And then these are on top of the ongoing cases involving Oh Tae-won of Pukgu District, who was found guilty in the first trial of having ordered an employee of his construction company that he owns to send some 180,000 text messages supporting a candidate ahead of the 2022 local elections. And if his guilty verdict is confirmed, then he loses his office. Another case is Kim Jin-hong of Donggu District Office. The chief was found guilty of violating the law on political funding.
I see. So that's a snapshot of what's going on locally in our municipal governments. All right, next, we usually think of a large business opening as a good thing for the neighborhood.
Right.
Until maybe it gets a little too big?
Maybe. So there's a bit of friction going on in 꽃마을 village in 서대신동 in Seoggu district over parking, which, anytime a big business opens in kind of a smaller neighborhood, parking wars. So the area has apparently always had issues with parking with the residents and local businesses. They've been calling for a new public parking lot for ages, including having submitted a petition to the district office. But the response, has always been, we don't have the money for this. There's a budget shortfall. However, frustrations recently exploded when a large franchise bakery opened recently in that neighborhood. So the constant flow of visitors added to the parking problem, with rows of illegal parking reported on weekends. So the residents actually recently held a rally for a parking solution, and they said they will hold a second rally in front of the district office.
I see. So hopefully there will be something to alleviate that problem. All right, so we all know by now, this is like the perfect season for outdoor activity. It's been so nice. And Busan City, it's big, bringing back I thought it was quite popular, the 갈매길 walking program.
Right. So Busan City has brought back its 2024 YOLO 갈매길 walking program. So this is comprised of 6 separate programs, from your regular walking program, moonlight walking, group walks, expeditions, and 갈매길 invitations. That particular one invites residents from the capital area to come walk on the 갈매길 trails and take tours here to increase its exposure nationwide. By the way, this program is also wheelchair accessible, which is great and very important, and will feature a trained walking tour guide. So it's open to anyone, and you can visit www. It's in Korean, 갈매길, and so that's a 시옷 받침, .kr. Sign-ups are on a first-come, first-served basis. The programs are open now until December 8th.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll see you on the trails. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you.
Back to you, the waivers. We're talking about books today. So who is your favorite author, your favorite book? Maybe you've read a book recently, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. It really kind of affected you, influenced you in some way, touched you. Or maybe you have a to-read list going on. So tell us all about that. And here is your traffic and weather for right now. It is now 7:17 on this Monday morning. Let's take a look at the traffic. It's looking quite slow on Pyeonglo right now from the Wondong ramp to Suyeong Tunnel. Also backed up on the Dongso overpass from Hwangryum ramp to the old Kaegum tollgate. Lastly, congestion from Ulsukdo Bridge tollgate through or towards the Myeongji underpass. And as for the weather, it's currently 19 degrees Celsius under cloudy skies. There is rain forecast starting in the afternoon with daytime highs of going up to 24 degrees Celsius. Most of the country will see rain at some point today, and some areas, especially along the southern coast, might even get thunder and lightning. This was traffic and weather.
Are you an early bird? Are you up to date on the news? Are you a trendsetter? For all of the biggest issues from Busan to the world and useful information you need, right here on Morning Wave in Busan.
It's now time for News Digest. We're going to dive into our first bit of news with Haley. This first story, it is regarding North Korea claiming that Seoul sent drones into Pyongyang's airspace.
Right. So as we got from the headlines, there's quite a bit of tension growing on the border area with North Korea getting its artillery shooters to be on basically stand by and war of words between the top officials. So why? What is the background behind this latest bout of tension? It's claims that Seoul sent drones over Pyongyang. So last week, North Korea's foreign ministry issued a statement saying that South Korea sent these unmanned drones, which are carrying allegedly anti-Pyongyang propaganda leaflets over Pyongyang on 3 different occasions this month. So the statements were published over North Korea's domestic media outlets, 노동신문 and Korea Central Television. And Korea Central TV also showed images of these drones in night skies over Pyongyang, with the leaflets that were allegedly dropped from the devices.
Right.
And then an hour after they made the announcement, the North launched about 20 trash balloons towards the south. And actually, the decision to publish the statement on 노동신문 and Korean Central TV is actually notable because it's unusual for North Korea to publicize South Korea's anti-Pyongyang propaganda on outlets that are largely aimed at local citizens. So once again, the paper and the TV are for domestic usage. Usually, the statements we do get regarding South Korea's activities, we usually cite Korea Central News Agency, which is their foreign outlet. That's for foreign news outlet.
Yes.
Because the thing is, publishing these anti-Pyongyang activities can, number one, make implications about potential issues with North Korea's air defense and also trigger other internal disputes within North Korea.
So that is very peculiar. Do we know as to why the North may have done this?
So they may have weighed the pros and cons of doing this time around. So pundits are saying that the decision could be to justify Kim Jong-un's recent stance of separating the two Koreas, that the two Koreas are, number one, separate nations and are in hostile relations. So this also may be to stir up anti-South Korean sentiments within North Korea, kind of paving the way for what they're trying to do, which is a possible constitutional amendment to really support this two-state stance.
I see. Well, South Korea, however, has not confirmed this, right?
Right. So South Korea's defense minister, Kim Yong-yeon, said that he couldn't confirm North's claims. And in a media interview, the National Security Advisor, Shin Won-sik, also said that it is unwise to respond to every single statement or allegation from North Korea. Shin said that confirming North Korea's claim is basically us getting swept up with what North Korea wants us to do. And he stated that North disclosing the drone infiltration was a calculated part to take advantage of the fear of these outside threats for the regime to maintain its power.
I see.
And Shin also said that because there are also many other types of drones that are very advanced, it's one cannot conclusively say that it would be a military drone per se that could infiltrate Pyongyang's airspaces.
I see. So that's what's going on there along the border. Definitely some tension there. All right, next, we're going to talk about the Bank of Korea because, it lowered the interest rate, making a turnaround after 3 years, is it?
Right. So Bank of Korea on Friday made its first cut to the benchmark interest rate in a little over 3 years, actually. The Monetary Policy Committee announced that they're cutting the lending and borrowing rate from 3.5% to 3.25%, the first reduction since August of 2021. So a bit of background, this monetary tightening mode began as inflation spiked globally in the midst of the pandemic, or a little bit after the midst of the pandemic. The U.S. Federal Reserve, the Korean Bank of Korea, and almost all other central banks throughout the world, maybe except the possible exception of Japan, they use their biggest weapon, which is raising the interest rate to curb this inflation.
Yes.
But unfortunately, this also had an effect of kind of slashing demand because households we physically had less money to buy things because it was costing us more to borrow money or pay back the interest on the money that we borrowed. So we saw 9 consecutive quarters of declined spending. So with this rate cut, the hope is that recovery of demand and spending.
Yes, absolutely. And this isn't just for individuals, but also for corporations and investments.
Right, which should have larger effects on the overall economy.
Sure.
So private sector investments are the most sensitive sensitive to these interest rates.
Right.
So the high interest rate also directly hit the construction industry. So experts predict that these fields will slowly but certainly recover. And then on top of that, corporations after early November, when the U.S. presidential election results are out, we'll get a clearer picture of the direction of the world's biggest economy.
Yes.
So they then can make decisions on where their respective corporate policies are headed. So definitely experts are saying that we will see recovery starting in middle of next year, mid-2025.
I see. However, the BOK governor, Bank of Korea governor, did warn against excessive real estate investments.
Right. So going back to individuals, don't just jump on buying homes again was the message. So BOK's governor Lee Chang-yong said that South Korea's situation isn't similar to that of the U.S., where we or the BOK can afford to lower interest rates by what they call big steps, by 0.5%.
Okay.
So he took a more hawkish, more conservative tone and warned that one shouldn't think it's going to be cheap to invest in real estate once again. So they are not certain that the real estate market has fully stabilized and told these kind of all-in, the younger investments, if you want to make gap investments, you really need to think about how much you will actually be able to afford these financial costs.
I see. So that's a look at the financial and economics for now. And for our next story, we're going to talk about this Japanese atomic bomb story survivors group, which has won the Nobel Peace Prize. So let's learn more about this group.
Right. So as South Korea has been focused on the Nobel Literature Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize announcement also came. This is Nihon Hidankyo, which is a Japanese group of atomic bomb survivors. They've won the 2024 Nobel Peace Prize for, quote, their efforts to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons and for demonstration through witness testimony that nuclear weapons must never be used again. So this group is comprised of the survivors of the 1945 atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the United States to end the Second World War. So about a decade later, the group was founded, and the survivors, what they do is they go around the world to share their experiences of testimonies of these atrocious damages that are caused by atomic bombs. And and so that's what they do.
Yes.
So one of the co-founders, co-heads of the group, Toshiyuki Mimaki, he was just 3 years old when the nuclear bomb hit his hometown of Hiroshima. But he still says he can still remember the dazed and burnt survivors fleeing past his home. And he criticized the idea that many nations seem to have of nuclear weapons, kind of the fear of the use of nuclear weapons bringing about peace.
I see. And we, of course, by no means are not on the committee, and we're not, trying to discount the recognition that this group may have, the attention that it's bringing. But sometimes people are saying, the Nobel Committee, don't they normally choose a group perhaps, where there's an ongoing conflict?
Right. They usually do. And previously Ukraine.
Right.
So there had been widespread speculation that the United Nations agency supporting Palestinians, which is abbreviated to UNRWA, they were being considered for the prize. So this organization is the main provider of the much needed humanitarian aid to Gaza. However, they haven't been without controversy because last year, 9 of its members were fired for their alleged involvement in the October 7th attack.
Right.
But then also they had support with over 12,000 people signing a petition against UNRWA to win the prize. So there was controversy. So the choice to go with Nihon Hidankyo seems to have been the least controversial choice. But then at the same time, it can also focus global attention to the larger threat of nuclear conflict, which is kind of the underlying concern with both Ukraine and the Middle East, because Russia and Israel, they are in possession of nuclear weapons. But interestingly, the co-head of going back to Nihon Hidankyo, he, during his tearful press conference, also said that he thought those fighting hard for peace in Gaza would have and should have won the award.
I see. Well, that is what's going on in the world right now. Our news, and we'll check in with you in hour number 2. So thank you, Haley.
See you in a bit.
With that, we're going to take our first song. So here it is, Monday Morning, 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton. Yes.
And I stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition and yawn and stretch and try to come to life. Jump in the shower and the blood starts pumping. Out on the streets the traffic starts jumping with folks like me on the job from 9 to 5. Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living. Barely getting by, it's all taking and no giving. They just use your mind. Won't seem to let me. I swear sometimes that man is out to get me. They let you dream just to watch him shatter. You're just a step on the boss man's ladder, but you got dreams he'll never take away. You're in the same boat with a lot of your friends, waiting for the day your ship will come in and the tide's gonna turn and it's all gonna roll your way. Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living. Barely getting by, it's all taking and no giving. They just use your mind and you never get the credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. 9 to 5, yeah, they got you where they want you. There's a better life, and you think about it, don't you? It's a rich man's game. What they call it, and you spend your life putting money in his wallet. 9 to 5, what a way to make a living. Getting by, it's all taking and no giving. They just use your mind and they never give you credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it. 9 to 5, yeah, they got you where they want you. There's a better life.
Welcome back, everybody. It's now time to get back to our main theme today. We are talking about job seeking here in Busan. You know, getting a job, getting hired, it's a tough time in anyone's life. But statistically, Busan job seekers seem to be having one of the hardest times. According to government data, the ratio of employment for high school graduates or higher was the lowest in Busan at 65%. So, you know, when we expand that scope to overseas, the employment rate in overseas firms was the highest, with 0.66% of all high school graduates or above or higher in Busan having gone overseas for jobs, or 90% of all job seekers finding overseas employment. And this is kind of an odd juxtaposition. The lowest domestic employment rate and the highest international employment rate. What does this all mean? Well, experts analyze the numbers and they seem to think that young locals are getting discouraged by the local or domestic situation and are finding other opportunities abroad. I, even as a non-expert, when I saw those figures, I was kind of like, well, doesn't that mean there aren't quality jobs here, so they're going abroad? So we have often addressed this whole youth exodus. And now it seems that the exit is expanding, not just from like Busan to the Seoul area, but also from Busan to abroad. And while we, of course, encourage individual choices, freedom to go abroad, of course, we do have to consider whether, you know, the conditions in Busan are actually pushing our youth out, that it's not really a choice. So let's think about that. Back to our discussion. We're talking about books today. So today, I want to know from you, what's your favorite book or author? Maybe a book you read recently, or maybe you just have one that you just read over and over again. That's fine too. Or maybe you have started a to-read list. Maybe you have one going. 자, 요즘 책이 너무 핫하잖아요. Obviously because of Han Kang, but usually for autumn or fall, we do talk about reading quite a bit. 내 인생 책, 최근에 읽은 책, 읽고 싶은 책. 네, so that is our discussion. That's what we're talking about. So looking at some of your discussions going on. And we have Betty checking in with us. So he says free books from his brother Anthony and brother Anthony of Taizé. And my reason, his books are so amazing, especially the translated works. So that's one that he mentions. And in terms of other books, Leslie, I just started the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series. And that's, I guess the author is Toshikazu Kawaguchi. And apparently there are 4 in that series. And Leslie is also an avid reader as well, as she has shared with us over and over again. So we'll be looking for more of your picks as well. In the meantime, though, I'll be back with Kat's pick for today. For today's Cat's Pick, this just happened a few hours back. Pretty amazing. SpaceX launching its enormous Starship rocket on Sunday local time. This, if you haven't seen the footage, you got to see it because it is its boldest test flight yet. The rocket, they blasted into air and then they caught it back with its mechanical arms. Here's a clip from ITV.
Now, the team behind the most powerful rocket ever built achieved something remarkable today. Starship is being developed by SpaceX for heavy lifting missions to the moon and to Mars, with its reusability one of its key features. Now, a test flight has shown that the rocket's booster can be returned to Earth and landed precisely in the same spot as its launch.
3, 2, 1.
As flames rolled across the launch pad, the deafening roar of the rockets competed with the cheers of excited SpaceX scientists. But this was the easy part.
Stage separation. Booster separate.
Because once separated, the booster would speed back to Earth at more than 17,000 miles per hour. It had to be slowed down and caught. To the delight of its creators, it was.
Booster running current shutdown.
This is absolutely insane!
Astounding even seasoned scientists.
A lot of things have to go perfectly for a rocket to actually launch successfully. And just getting into space is difficult enough. Bringing your spacecraft back safely and bringing it back this way that had never been tried before was even more complex. So many things had to work perfectly for this to happen today. And it is quite phenomenal that they've managed to do it on the first attempt.
We're now down to 3 Raptor engines.
The 400-foot Starship is the biggest and most powerful rocket ever built. The booster alone has 33 methane-fueled engines. By being able to reuse it, scientists hope it will make space exploration cheaper and more efficient. A concept which had belonged in the pages of a science fiction novel, but today was written into history.
Even in this day and age, what we just saw, that looks like magic.
So once again, I know we had the still photos up on our YouTube channel. You got to see the actual footage. So let me try to describe. So they blast the rocket up, into whatever the atmosphere, stratosphere, and then it comes back down, and the mechanical arms catch the rocket again. It's so amazing. I thought it was at first, I'm like, is this AI? Is this some sort of, manipulated, footage? It's not. So check it out. Big step for humankind. This was your pick for today.
Stay tuned. You're listening to Morning Wave in Busan.
now time for fun facts and trivia. Guess who's back? We have our Professor Joffrey. Joffrey's back in the studio. How are you?
Good morning, Catherine. I'm good.
You've been busy, I hear. Awfully busy, right?
Yes, very busy. I have to do a lot of things in Seoul as well. So I go to Seoul about twice a week.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
going back and forth
Coming back and forth.
on the KTX?
On the KTX. Sometimes
Oh.
plane. Yeah.
So tiring.
Tiring. And sometimes we encounter that no KTX anymore. So you have to stand on the KTX.
Oh, the no seats? It's so
the no
crowded?
seats. And you need to transfer somewhere in Daejeon
my
or
gosh.
Daegu. Yeah.
That's
I experienced
terrible.
that one time. So it's a lesson for me.
Yes.
Yeah, to reserve your tickets earlier. And for our listeners, if you
Reserve
have
them
plans,
early.
reserve them early.
All right. Hey, so before we dive into fun facts and trivia, we're talking about books today because, obviously last week, we got the breaking news that Han Kang won the Nobel Prize in Literature.
Yeah,
and in
I've heard
hour
about
number
that.
2, we're going to have one of the translators that worked on one of her, on her books. She's going to be on air with us. So we're really excited
That's
about
really
that.
nice. Great.
But we're talking about your favorite book, or maybe a book that really touched you, something that you want to recommend, or something that's on your to-read list. Any of the above.
Well, actually, to be honest, I haven't heard a novel or similar to that for a long time. I read textbooks, so you can just imagine how boring my life is.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but there is
he's a
this
professor. He has to read lots of textbooks and teach, right?
I got this book. It's called I forgot the book. It's teaching us about life, based on a Christian teaching.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So that's one of the books that you've been reading. So let's dive into fun facts and trivia. What do you have for us today?
Earlier, I've heard about the employment rate in Busan.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's sad.
And I think they don't have luck enough to get jobs, because I've heard too that many are really working hard to get a job, but then even if they have all the skills and the experiences, luck is just not in their on their side.
Luck.
So
Luck is important.
Today we're going to be talking about luck, and that has something to do with superstitions.
Ooh, I
Yes.
like the segue, the connection. Superstition.
Superstitions, because we do a lot of, what do you call that? Things that something we cannot explain, but we do that because we just want to have something that bring us luck. Yeah, so superstitions are beliefs
Yes.
or practices that are not based on scientific reasoning, but are often rooted in cultural traditions.
That's true.
And they typically arise from a desire to explain the unexplainable. Or exert some control over uncertain situations. So what we're saying here is that superstitions serve a psychological purpose,
Yes.
as well as a cultural one. Yeah.
So, definitely, I think superstitions, a very captivating topic. And like you say, from culture to culture, they vary.
Yes.
There are some similarities, but in other regards, very different depending on the culture.
Yes. And this superstitions has something to do with animals,
Oh yeah, those always
numbers,
animals.
colors, and
All of the above.
all of the above, and so many other
Yes.
things. And it affects our relationship as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so one fascinating example of this is from Italy, where it's considered bad luck to place a hat on a bed.
Wait, what?
If you place a hat on a bed, this is considered
a
bad
hat.
luck. Yeah.
At first I said you said head. I was like, how do you go to bed? you can't put
I had
your
a
head.
moja.
Oh, moja,
Moja,
hat.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so
Don't put your hat on your bed.
on your bed.
Okay.
This superstition is thought to stem from the belief that it invites death or misfortune.
Oh, so that's like a no, never. Don't do that.
Never. And in contrast, in Japan, it's
Yes.
believed that if you sleep with your head facing north, it can lead to bad luck, as this is the direction in which the disease are laid to rest.
Oh, okay. So that's.
Do you have similar in Korea?
I think in Korea too, like in terms of like when you're situating your bedroom, they tell you like have your bed facing a certain way or not facing a certain way. I don't remember which
and also
direction.
the doors,
Right.
Not directly towards you, the door.
There's a little bit of in terms of the layout of the room.
Layout of the room, and that is very popular in China. Before you when you decorate your room or
Feng
your
shui.
house, there's
Yeah.
feng shui.
Yeah.
That's very popular.
Yes,
And we
indeed.
do that in the Philippines too.
You know what though? They say, in like big casinos,
Yeah.
even in Las Vegas, some of the casino layout like coordinators, they even hire feng shui like masters, they say, to come because the whole point is they want the house, meaning the hotel or casino, to take
Bring in.
everybody's reap all the money, right? So
Yeah.
they sometimes hire those feng shui masters so that they can take everybody's money.
Right.
Anything that will give them an edge. It's like, that's true
It's
story.
again about luck.
Yes, it's all about luck and superstition.
And speaking of animals,
Yes.
they play a significant role in superstitions.
Okay.
In many cultures, owls are seen as omens of death or misfortune. But in some Native American cultures, they are considered wise and protective. So, which culture is it? If you are going to do this one,
Yes.
what are we gonna do?
I don't know. It's a
So
tough
you are
one.
in between a death or misfortune,
Yes.
and wise being protective, right? So that is for animals.
Yes.
And another one is the number, right?
Numbers, yes.
Numbers. We have 13. We have number 4. We
4.
have number 9.
What, 9?
Yeah, number 9. Lucky 9
Lucky
in some
7?
cultures.
Lucky 9?
Lucky 9. Yes.
Oh.
So now you have lucky 7 too.
Oh, what is? I was like, lucky 9. I didn't know about the 9. Okay.
So these numbers, you already know. One of the most well-known superstition is the number 13.
That's right.
And this is referred to. This word is a little bit difficult to
Yes.
pronounce. Triskaidekaphobia.
Yes, the fear of the number 13.
Yeah, the fear of 13, number 13. And many buildings in the West skip the number 13th. In Korea, we skip the number 4 for the 4th floor. I still see a lot of buildings with letter F floor.
Instead of the the numerical 4, right?
Instead of the numerical number 4. But the newer buildings have the number 4.
Yeah. And I heard like back in the day, like maybe if you got like some sort of housing or an office space on the 4th floor, it was usually a little bit cheaper because nobody wanted to be on that floor.
Oh, that's
I don't know
right, yeah.
these days, it's probably not true. But back in the day, I heard that was true. Or they used to skip it. They
Yeah.
used to go like 1, 2, 3, and then 5. And then my
5.
question always was, so if you're on the 5th floor, technically you're still on the 4th floor.
You're still on the 4th floor.
Yes.
Right.
Always questions about that.
It is. And because it's 13th, you have heard of Friday the 13th?
Oh, of course.
Friday the 13th is considered an unlucky day in the Western cultures. But in Chinese culture,
Yes.
the number 8 is seen as very lucky because it sounds similar to the word for wealth or prosperity.
Oh, yes.
And before exams, before getting married, before going on a very important meeting, number 8 should be there in your system.
The 8.
Number 8.
I see.
Preparing for whatever
We have
big.
a listener who's chiming in about the whole numbers bit. Umberto, he says, in my culture, eating grapes on New Year's Eve is good luck to start the year. So you're supposed to have 12 grapes.
12 grapes.
Like one for each month of the year, I'm thinking, the calendar months.
In some cultures, 12 are rounded fruits. The round
Any round
signifies
is
like
good?
money.
Ah.
So the coin.
Coinage.
The coin. And 12, I think it's because of the number of months.
Yes.
In some cultures, we also do that. The fruits. It has to be
Fruits has to be round.
12 different kinds of fruits.
But round.
Round.
Usually round?
But it's very difficult to get 12 kinds of fruits with
That
a
are
round shape, right? So
like,
maybe banana too.
What if you like mango?
Mango, sure.
Not round.
But it's near
Oval.
to round.
Yeah. Close enough, right? All right.
Close to that.
All right, so we went over numbers, but sometimes don't superstitions, or aren't they like born out of practical reasons?
Yes, practical reasons because, as we said earlier, we we don't really cannot explain, but we just want to have a good feeling, probably, right? So some people would say, "There's no harm in doing it," but we are full of fears, I guess.
Yes,
the reason
yes.
we are doing that, and because we cannot really see our fate and future, and by just doing that, probably it can give us some confidence to do something. For whatever we plan.
Right.
Yeah.
So in terms of these types of beliefs and, the role of superstitions, what kind of role do you think they play in like modern society plus like people's behavior? What do you think?
Well, this because they influence decisions in areas like sports, business, and even personal relationships.
Right.
So we do engage in rituals that can actually give us, as I've mentioned earlier, give us a feeling of being lucky. All right.
I just remember, like, I know lots of like sports stars or athletes. They have a lot of superstitions. Like, I know some athletes, like, they wear the same like underwear, like on game day, because it's like their lucky underwear. It's very common, they say.
Underwear?
Yeah. Like, it's like a particular pair that they really like they probably wore it on a day where they had a fantastic day, like somewhere on, and then they continue to wear it. Obviously it's been washed, but that's recycling, and they wash it and they re-wear that same pair of undies, right? Sports stars, athletes, they have and like some people, they believe like, oh, I'm not gonna shave until we get to the playoffs or something. So that's kind of common too.
Well, that's my first time to hear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that one.
Oh, the shaving? Leslie confirms the red underwear. That's right, Leslie. You know what I'm talking about.
So color. We're talking about color, right?
Oh, red is...
In Russia, don't give yellow flowers.
Yellow flowers because?
Yeah. Again, death.
In Korea, isn't it white flowers? Like, you're not supposed to give white flowers because that... If you go
it
to
depends
any
on the
funeral,
occasion, though.
But normally, you don't give like white flowers.
Even to
loved ones.
Loved ones?
Because it kind of represents, if you go to any type of funeral in Korea, if you look at all the flowers, they're white flowers. So it kind of represents death. I'm thinking probably not the calla lilies during Easter, but I'm saying generally speaking, you don't give your girlfriend or your husband a bouquet of white flowers.
What is your favorite color?
My favorite color, I love pink.
Pink.
For flowers.
For flowers.
Yes.
Yeah, because my favorite color is red. And there are many things that I cannot do with the red color in Korea.
Like, you can't write your name.
You cannot write your name with red pen. When you go to a funeral, to the wake, you cannot wear anything red.
Oh, right. That's considered.
But in China, red is a color of luck.
Of course.
That's why
red
they have a
everything.
lot of red in festivals.
Yeah, look at their going to the Olympics. Everything is red.
Everything is red.
Yes.
And their flag is red.
Oh, indeed.
There are many superstitions that we can give more. Walking under a ladder, broken mirror, lucky pennies. We also have the fingers crossed.
Yeah, I do that all the time. Like, fingers crossed, knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
Yes, we say for good luck.
But some cultures, they also have the knock on steel.
Knock on steel.
Knock on steel. Instead of a wood.
Like,
yeah.
I'm like, where's the say? Say a little bit of say here on my mic. Right. Well, we are going to have to kind of wrap things up. So any last words on superstitions? Do you have a particular superstition, Joffrey?
Yeah, because when I was younger, my mother was a very superstitious individual. So I think you too, when you were younger, you participate in competitions in elementary school.
Yes.
So she always told me that I have to put a coin under on my shoes so I don't feel nervous.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did it work?
I'm not sure.
Well, you're sitting here today, so it must have. Thank you, Mom.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't have coins now in my shoes, but when I was young.
You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. So
on that happy note, though, we have to wrap things up, Joffrey. But You'll be back next week.
I'll be back next week with
Thank
more
you.
of fun facts and trivia.
All right, everybody. This was Joffrey, and this is Zico with 아무 노래. I'll be back at 8.
분위기가 겁나 싸해 요새 이런 게 유행인가 왜들 그리 재미없어 그건 나도 마찬가지 Tell me what I got to do 급한 대로 블루투스 켜 아무 노래나 일단 틀어 아무거나 신나는 걸로 아무렇게나 춤춰 아무렇지 않아 보이게 아무 생각하기 싫어 아무개로 살래 잠시 I'm sick and tired of my everyday Keep it up 한 것도 아무 노래나 일단 틀어 아무렴 어때 so boring 아무래도 refresh가 시급한 듯해 쌓여간 스트레스가 배꼽 빠질 만큼만 복속하고 싶은 날이야 You're one of my thugs 어디야 넌 올 때 병맥주랑 깜짝 늦게 사와 클럽은 구미가 잘 안 당겨 우리 집 거실로 빨랑 왜 보이는 여우량껏 차단시켜 밤새 수다 떨 시간도 모자라 누군 힘들어 죽겠고 누군 축제 괜히 싱숭생숭 I want my douche bag 좀 전까지 못 차지 가다 한 명 두 명씩 자리 왜들 그리 다운돼 있어 뭐가 문제야 say something 분위기가 겁나 싸해 요새 이런 게 유행인가 왜들 그리 재미없어 그건 나도 마찬가지 Tell me what I got to do 급한 대로 블루투스 켜 아무 노래나 일단 틀어 아무거나 신나는 걸로 아무렇게나 춤춰 아무렇지 않아 보이게 아무 생각하기 싫어 아무개로 살래 잠시 I'm sick and tired of my everyday Keep it up 한 곡도 떠나지 못할 바람 창밖은 쳐다도 안 봐 회가닥에서 주태를 부려도 No worries at all
Your bridge to the world.
는 지속적으로 발생하고 있습니다. 스쿨존에서는 반드시 시속 30km 이하 서행, 스쿨존 내 불법 주정차 금지, 차량 출발 전 앞뒤 좌우 살피는 습관으로 어린이가 안전한 도시를 만듭니다. 참, 운전 중 휴대전화 사용은 모두에게 위험합니다. 우리 모두를 위한 교통안전, 나부터 실천하면 모두가 안전해집니다. 어린이가 안전하게 뛰어놀 수 있는 부산. 아이 키우기 좋은 도시는 우리 모두의 미래이자 희망입니다. 이 캠페인은 어린이가 안전한 부산을 만드는 은행, BNK 부산은행과 함께합니다.
부산 글로벌 도시재단 대표이사 전용호입니다. 부산은 대한민국의 굳건한 성장 동력으로서 물류, 금융, 영상, 관광, 문화, 디지털 첨단 산업의 중심지인 글로벌 허브 도시로 나아가고 있습니다. 이를 위해 부산 글로벌 도시재단은 부산을 대표하는 도시 외교의 플랫폼을 지향합니다. 세계 평화도시 부산의 브랜드를 강화하는 부산 UN 위크와 부산 글로벌 도시 포럼, 유라시아 도시 외교단, 개발협력 포럼, 그리고 세계 시민 축제는 부산의 소프트 파워의 상징으로 자리매김하고 있습니다. 부산 영어방송도 시민과 함께 영어하기 편한 도시, 세계와 경쟁하며 더불어 살아가는 부산을 만들어가겠습니다. 시민이 행복한 글로벌 허브 도시 부산, 부산 글로벌 도시재단이 함께합니다.
엄마, 나 용돈 좀 올려줘.
이거 친구가 준 거예요.
아이들의 일상을 관심 있게 들여다보면 도박으로 힘겨워하는 아이들의 구조 신호가 들립니다. 다양한 형태로 드러나는 청소년 도박. 그들의 구조 신호에 응답해주세요. 공익광고협의회.
The time is now 8 o'clock.
Good morning, Dynamic Busan.
Yeah, you're waking up. Time to shake it up. Tell the world good morning and find out what's going on.
Well, hi there, folks. There's everything from comedy to lively chat to music.
Broadcasting from a room about the size of your closet.
All calls are recorded.
What show is this?
Live from Korea's dynamic city, this is Morning Wave in Busan.
I'm sorry, who'd you say you were?
The time is now 8 o'clock and this is news highlights. North Korea ordered artillery corps near border to fully prepare to shoot. North Korea said yesterday it has ordered its artillery corps near the border with South Korea to fully prepare to shoot after the North threatened a horrible disaster over the alleged flight of drones over its capital. South Korea's defense ministry warned that the North will see the end of its regime if it causes harm to its people, following Pyongyang's threat of such. Kim Yo-jong made the threat after the North claimed that the South had sent unmanned drones over Pyongyang 3 times this month, allegedly carrying propaganda leaflets. South Korea, U.S., Japan summit expected near the end of year. The leaders of South Korea, the United States, and Japan are expected to hold a trilateral summit near the end of this year, upon a proposal from U.S. President Joe Biden. The trilateral summit, if realized, will be a follow-up to the historic trilateral meeting held at Camp David last year and will bring together President Yoon Suk-yeol, President Joe Biden, and Japan's new Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. In the meantime, the 3 countries' senior diplomats will meet in Seoul this week for trilateral talks on ways to further boost their partnership. Early voter turnout for by-elections comes to 8.98%. The voter turnout for early voting for the October 16th by-elections came to 8.98% for Friday and Saturday, said the National Election Commission, or NEC. Busan's Kimjeong District recording 20.63%. Ganghwa County and Incheon saw a 27.9% turnout, with figures for Koksang and Yeongwon counties at 41.44% and 43.06% respectively. The regular vote will take place between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. on Wednesday this week. H5N3 avian influenza confirmed in South Korea for first time. The nation's first case of highly pathogenic H5N3 avian influenza, or AI, has been confirmed in wild bird feces collected from Kunsan, Jeonbuk province. According to the Central Disaster Management Headquarters, the samples collected from a local river on October 2nd were first confirmed as a case of H5AI on Thursday before a confirmation of the exact H5N3 virus. The headquarters repeatedly called for thorough quarantine at poultry farms across the country, including immediate reports of any minor symptoms among their birds. UN peacekeepers say Israeli tanks forcibly entered base in southern Lebanon. The UN peacekeeping mission in Lebanon has said 2 Israeli tanks destroyed a gate and forcibly entered a base on Sunday local time as Israel's ground operation against Hezbollah moved deeper into Lebanese territory. Hezbollah has also amped up strikes against Israel with over 60 people injured in a drone strike in northern Israel in retaliation. Meanwhile, the U.S. announced that it will send an anti-missile system to Israel, as well as a crew of U.S. military personnel to operate the system. And this was News Highlights. It is time for issue wa글와글, which means Haley's here.
Hello, hello.
That's right. So, the big news still. I mean, it just continued, the celebration.
I would like it to be forever and ever.
I know. Don't we all? Everyone is still celebrating Han Kang's Nobel Literature Prize win, and this is really fantastic news for the book industry in general, is it not?
Because you know who has been going through a rough time the past, decade? The book industry, the publishing industry. So we're talking about bookstores, publishers, and printers all burning the proverbial midnight oil.
Right.
So over the weekend, starting, I think, Friday morning last week, throughout the weekend, there were huge lines across the country's major bookstores. Of course, Han Kang's books flying off the shelves. One bookstore, according to social media posts, they, after all her recent copies were just depleted, they somehow, in the back stock found her books from the 90s. Like the copies, editions from the 90s where the white cover had turned kind of yellowy.
Yes.
They also all sold out. Another put her father, novelist Han Seung-won's books on display cases after his daughter's Han Kang's books were completely sold out. Libraries too, they've seen their supply of Han Kang's books all checked out. But here's a little pro tip from me. Look for her books at small libraries. So huge libraries like Busan 도서관, the Busan Library. They're all out.
Gone.
I checked.
Yes.
But your local community center has libraries, and most libraries, they close on Mondays, but your local library center, or local community center, their 작은 도서관, they're open on Mondays because it's a community center. So go now.
No, not now, 9.
Oh, sorry. Go after our show ends. Or, listen to us while you're traveling.
Yes.
Mobile devices. Anyways, the top booksellers, we're talking about Kyobo and Yes24, collectively sold 500,000 copies as of 2 p.m. yesterday. So hopefully we are going to that million mark soon.
Yes.
Printers have been pulling all-nighters across the weekend. And this is an industry that's been going through one of the toughest times. So it's huge for the industry as a whole.
Right.
By the way, author Han Kang did thank the public for their wave of support, but she actually will not be holding the traditional press conference that Nobel laureates do.
Right.
And she told her father that this is given the state of global affairs with wars intensifying and people dying every day.
And I respect.
And also give her the Peace Prize.
Right.
Yeah.
But seriously, respect.
But really, truly, yes.
So, the image that's been shared multiple times on social media is the Nobel Committee's announcement with that drawing of Han Kang, right?
Right. So the portrait of Han Kang, and this is by the artist Nicholas Elmhead, who has been charged of drawing portraits of Nobel laureates, since about 12 years ago. So because most recipients, especially in the sciences, they're researchers who have been in the lab for decades, so they do not have the fancy official headshots as most. It's a little different for the literature and mostly Peace Prize recipients because they are sometimes heads of state, not often. So they only had low quality fuzzy photos available for the science laureates. So Elmhead was very dissatisfied with this, so he began to do his own portraits as the ones that we see, kind of the outlined sketches.
Right,
and by popular demand, 2 years later, he became the official artist for the Nobel Committee. All the portraits, after they're sketched out, they're rendered in gold as well, regardless of the recipient's race or nationality. Interestingly, because it does take time to draw the portraits, he is one of the first people to know who the winners are.
Oh, interesting. Well, as we can see, the entire country is celebrating author Han Kang's Nobel Prize once again. But it also has come up. It's been highlighted that she was on the cultural blacklist during the whole, former Park Geun-hye administration.
Right. So the fact that she was on the former Park Geun-hye administration's cultural blacklist, that has resurfaced after the Nobel Prize announcement.
Yes.
So this is back in 2016 when the prosecution raided the culture ministry back then, and that was in light of the Choi Soon-sil influence peddling scandal. The prosecution uncovered this blacklist of prominent cultural figures who are deemed anti-government or leftist. That also included Bong Joon-ho on that list as well, and of course Han Kang. And it's not just the fact that she was included on the list, is also how that affected her career, at least during the next couple of years.
Right.
So when she won the International Man Booker Prize for vegetarian, the ministry proposed to the ex-president Park Geun-hye, then president, that she send her a congratulatory message under the president's name, as one often does in times of national honor.
Right.
But Park refused.
Oh.
Right. And this was confirmed via the prosecution's investigation.
Sure.
And in Korean, we call that 축전. And also for the novel Human Act, 소년이 온다, that was excluded from the Culture Ministry's book promotion and distribution program for excellent books back in 2016. And, if that's not an excellent book, we don't know what is. And there have been whistleblower statements from the ministry that the reason that it was excluded amongst many others is because it had keywords that the government back then did not approve of. Human Act is about the democratic uprising in Gwangju.
Right. So that's one aspect of this whole ongoing story, but it's been also pointed out that her book was on the banned book list in one particular municipality, though.
Right. So Gyeonggi Office of Education, they have discarded, not them officially, but schools within Gyeonggi. They've discarded 2,500 books collectively that dealt with sexual contents or sex education. And her Man Booker winning book, Vegetarian, was one of them. Yeah, so this is about banning books, which is always a controversial issue with censorship. But this was done upon complaints from a conservative group that called on the education authorities to sort and throw out, quote, harmful books for teenagers. And it turns out that the Gyeonggi Education Office, they sent out multiple official letters to the schools recommending that the schools use basically their own system and judgment to get rid of the books that have, quote, sexual contents. But the thing is, they didn't provide specific or official guidelines. Instead, told the schools to refer to articles like news articles about these conservative groups' press conferences where they condemned and named specific books.
Oh, really?
So instead of doing their own research, it just kind of tossed them the articles. The Education Office, for its part, never specifically or explicitly made a list, but instead they left it up to the schools. Turns out only one school actually got rid of its copies of Vegetarian.
Yes.
However, let's take it to the bigger picture. We're a country, we can really use this Nobel Prize win as momentum for our literature and reading culture.
Yes.
Then perhaps we should also address how books, contents, and freedom of speech are treated.
Exactly. And if, any of the content you feel might be borderline, it's an opportunity for discussion.
By the way, Vegetarian is visceral. It is a hard read.
Yes.
I'm not recommending that a 13-year-old go and read it or a parent recommend that to a 13-year-old. But we could also have a discussion about about how books that win, or even films that win, the Academy, whatever, they might be time and a place for appropriate ages, but not just burning them.
And then I also wonder, like, the schools, do they like actually have, people, the librarians, are they reading all the books? Like, are they being at least vetted to make sure they're appropriate,
Right, exactly.
So lots of discussion. That's the whole point. We're going to move on, though. This whole mandatory military service issue, it's such a sensitive topic here in the country, and there are definitely celebrities who have lost basically their careers, gone over this. But there are about 4,000 people every year that give up their South Korean citizenship. So, to not do, or some people might say evade, military service.
Right. So this is according to the Military Manpower Administration's data released by lawmaker Hwang Hee. Between the years 2020 and August of this year, there were over 19,000 men between the ages of 18 and 40, aka who have to be conscripted unless they have physical or mental reasons not to, that have given up their Korean citizenship. So this is about 1 in 10 of those who are up for conscription haven't given up their Korean citizenship.
Yes.
And what's notable, according to the lawmaker, is that there are more and more people who use their socioeconomic privilege, as they said, to evade military service. Basically, they could afford to go abroad and study abroad, and they did.
For a long term.
For a very long time.
Yes.
So the first case is those who are born Korean citizens but acquired foreign citizenship. And in these cases, the most common chosen citizenships were American, followed by Japan, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. By the way, U.S. citizenships accounted for 55% of these cases.
Interesting.
And then there are also those who are born with dual citizenships but gave up on their Korean citizenship in order to not serve. And the most common case here was actually China, followed by the U.S. and Vietnam.
But there are also cases of South Korean nationals, just refusing to come back into the country to serve in the military, which is different from giving up your citizenship.
Exactly. At least if you're giving up your citizenship, you're giving up the privilege that comes with it.
Yeah, and the rights
including the healthcare and pensions and whatnot.
Yes.
However, there are Korean citizens who are just saying, we're not going to come back until we're 40. It seems to be the case.
Yes.
The MMA military manpower data showed that in the last 6 years, there were over 1,000 people who fell into this camp. By the way, this is illegal. It's against the law, as conscription law says that if one has been conscripted to serve and that person does not come back into the country without a justifiable reason, they may be sentenced to up to 5 years in prison. However, the thing is, they're outside the South Korean jurisdiction.
Yes.
So in the past 6 years, only 51 men, or 6% of those who fall into this category, have actually been sentenced. So yeah, that's the state of things right now.
And then Tommy says, 갑자기 유승준 생각나네요.
I mean,
we've talked about him.
He's the poster child for this.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, we're going to go to Florida in the U.S. where residents are struggling to recover. I mean, first we had Hurricane Helene in that area vicinity. And then we had Hurricane Milton with some now unexpected challenges.
Alligators.
Because
it is Florida. And and then flooding. So alligators have also lost their homes. So they're kind of roaming about, it seems. Florida's wildlife officials have warned that multiple species, including alligators, stingrays, which are kaori, and others are more active and they may be observed more in flooded areas. So that raises potential risks for snakes as well, by the way. There is a viral video of an alligator that's just hanging out at an entryway of a home in Tampa because that alligator has been displaced from his or her home. Another alligator was reportedly seen attacking a tire of a vehicle that was going through the floodwaters in North Myers. By the way, Florida is home to about 1.3 million alligators, and some of them were affected by Milton. They rarely attack people, though, but I mean, they are sensitive right now because their homes have been lost. But according to Florida state figures, 26 people have been killed by an alligator between 1946 and 2022.
So it doesn't happen often. It does happen once in a blue moon.
Right, but right now there are more of them displaced. Keep that in mind.
And of course, we shouldn't provoke them because technically that was all their land.
Any
before
wildlife,
we went.
Just leave them alone. Yes.
Well, thank you for going over all the issues. We'll check in with you tomorrow. Thank you, Haley.
Have a great day.
And now back to you, the listeners, for our traffic and weather. is now 8:18. This is your updated traffic report. There was an accident on Chungjangdaero from pier number 5 to the Customs Office intersection. So apparently this was a two-car collision at the entrance of Chungjang Overpass. Please be aware of this area. Another accident to report on the Dongso Overpass going away from the city right by Hwangyong Ramp as well. Congestion building on Chungjangdaero right now from Yangjong intersection to the three-way Songgong intersection. It's also backed up on Yeonsuro from Mangmi intersection to Suyong intersection. Temperature-wise, it's currently 21 degrees under cloudy skies. Rain is forecast for the afternoon. Daytime high expected, 24 degrees Celsius. Most of the country will see rain at some point today, with even thunder and lightning along the southern coast. This was your updated traffic and weather. All right, so we have Believer by Imagine Dragons, and coming up soon we have our special interview with 작별하지 않는다, the translator, the 번역가.
I'm fired up and tired of the way that things have been. Oh, ooh, the way that things have been. Oh, ooh. Second, don't you tell me what you think that I can be. I'm the one at the sail, I'm the master of my sea. Oh, ooh, the master of my sea. Oh, ooh. I was broken from a young age, taking my soak into the masses, writing my poems for the few that look at me, took to me, shook at me, feeling me, singing from heartache, from the pain, taking my message from the veins, speaking my lesson from the brain, seeing the beauty through the. Hey, you make me a believer, believer. Hey, you make me down, you build me a believer, believer. Hey, let the bullets fly, let them rain. My life, my love, my time, it came from. Hey, you make me a believer, believer. Third things third, send a prayer to the ones up above. All the hate that you've heard has turned your spirit to a dove. Oh, ooh, your spirit up above. Oh, ooh. I was choking in the crowd, building my rain up in the cloud, falling like ashes to the ground, hoping my feelings they would drown, but they never did. Ever lived, ebbing and flowing, inhibited, limited, till it broke open and rained down. It rained down like. You made me a believer, believer. Hey, you make me down, you build me a believer, believer. Hey, let the bullets fly, let them rain. My life, my love, my time, it came from. Hey, you made me a believer, believer. Last days last by the grace of the fire and the flames. You're the face of the future, the blood in my veins. Oh, ooh, the blood in my veins. Oh, ooh. But they never did, ever lived, ebbing and flowing, inhibited, limited, till it broke up when it rained down. It rained down like. Hey, you made me a believer, believer. You made me a believer, believer. Hey, let the bullets fly, let them rain. My life, my love, my time, it came from. Hey, you made me a believer, believer.
All right, real quick, today we've been talking about books today, whether it's your favorite book or author, or a book that you've read recently or a book that you want to read. And so many messages from people about their favorite books, but I want to read this one from Young, who says, 평소에 욕심을 버리자라고 항상 말하지만 이번 한강님의 채식주의자 꼭 읽고 싶은 욕심이 생기네요. 그것도 집에서 그리 멀지 않는 한강 The Han River에서 꼭 읽고 싶어요. 근데 책이 없어요. 누가 책 좀 빌려주세요. 라고 영님이 이렇게 글을 올렸는데요. So basically he's saying he really is not much of a competitive kind of person, but he really wants to get his hands on a copy of The Vegetarian, and apparently it's like sold out everywhere. So he hopes to one day be able to read it along the banks of the Han River. So he's like, hey, does anybody have a copy? Well, I think everybody's holding on dear fast to their copy of whatever they have of Han Kang's works right now. And so a lot of you mentioned, what about Lee Kelly? His favorites, he mentioned, are things like Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. He said, that was so much better than the movie, but still loved the movie. And he also mentioned The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. Those actually were both two books that I've read also. And I agree. It's always like 99% of the time, in my humble opinion, that the book, the work, the written word is better than what's actually portrayed on film. But it could also be because, with books, I feel personally, you have your own imagination to a certain extent, especially with fiction work. Like, you read and then you kind of develop this picture or image in your own head. And then you have like a director or producer put it on the big screen. And some people get disappointed because it just doesn't fit how you reimagined it. So maybe that's why we're a little disappointed sometimes when we see the film version of something. Anyhow, we're going to get to it. I'll be back with our special interview. Last week, everyone, we all know that Han Kang made history as the first South Korean author, also the first Asian woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, marking a proud moment for everyone, but especially for those here in Korea. For many, it was, this long-anticipated chance to read a Nobel-winning work in its original language rather than through a translation. However, the importance of translators and translation has been highlighted as well, because what do the translated works do? They help bring Korean literature to the rest of the world. And so we have Paige Aniyah Morris, co-translator of Han's novel. In English, the title is We Do Not Part. In Korean, 한글로는 작별하지 않는다. It's one of, we really wanted to get this interview because we want to get behind and into the mind of a person who's actually worked on one of her works. So let's say hi to her right now. Paige Morris is a writer, an educator, and also translator. So she's on air with us right now. Hi, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, so first of all, I do want to get right into the nitty-gritty. So how did you come to work on Han Kang's work and on translating We Do Not Part?
Yeah, so it came about sort of by surprise for me. I had worked with my co-translator, Lee-won, on a different project a few years ago. And shortly after that, we connected online. And she reached out to me one day to ask if I wanted to collaborate on a new translation project. But she didn't say anything about the author, the plot of the book. I was just so excited to work with her that I said yes without knowing anything. And then the next day, the manuscript for We Did Not Part was in my inbox. And I was shocked, obviously, that Lee-won trusted me enough to collaborate on this particular author who's so important and such a groundbreaking writer now to the English readers as well. So I felt pressured, obviously, like, can I do a good job on this? But I also felt this obligation to do her work justice. So that's how I ended up working on the book.
And so thanks for explaining how you got to work on it. But what was it like to work with such a complex and, from what I understand, in a very emotionally intense narrative?
Yes, it was the most intense translation project I've worked on to date. And I found that during the process, I needed to take a lot more breaks than I usually do while working. I had to switch to other projects or clear my head somehow, just because even just as a reader, that novel is so immersive and so overwhelming. But especially when translating, you're working so closely with it that it felt almost suffocating at times, and I had to step away a bit. But I think it was important and necessary to get that space and be able to come back and re-enter when I was able to. So it was intense, but yeah, worthwhile.
I mean, to the point, as you mentioned, that it was almost suffocating, I guess, goes to our readers who may not have read this one. I know it's out in Korean, and from what I understand, I guess it's set to be published in English. It's set to be released early 2025, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, though. There are early copies floating around as well. So.
Okay. So not to give away too much of the plot, because I know many of our listeners right now, they've probably read many of maybe her earlier works, like The Vegetarian, for example, but maybe not this one, even in the Korean language. So what do you think is kind of the essence of this book? Because I have to preface it by saying that the importance of the historic backdrop to this novel, We Do Not Part, it's very important, is it not?
Yes, it definitely is. So overall, the novel is about friendship, but also about this historical trauma and uncovering it. Just a brief description of the plot.
Yes.
Yes, a writer named Kyung-ah receives a message one day from her friend, who's a documentary filmmaker named In-sun. And In-sun has had an accident that has left her hospitalized and requires Kyung-ah to go to In-sun's home in Jeju to take care of In-sun's pet birds. So Kyung-ah goes to Jeju. She's not expecting to find sort of evidence of a project In-sun has been working on to piece together In-sun's own family's history and connection to the series of massacres that took place largely on Jeju in the late 1940s, which is today known as the Jeju Uprising.
Yes. So that's why we mentioned how the historic backdrop of this is so important. For you, I know that there might be, of course, as you say, it was almost suffocating, according to your words just a few moments ago, in terms of the challenging aspects of translating this particular work. Was it the words, her words, that were so evocative, or was it the backdrop? Was it a combination of both? Can you share a little bit into your insight?
Yes, it was a number of elements, I think, that made this a really challenging novel to translate. About the amount of research, of course, that had to go into finding the right language for a lot of the history that, there's not really a lot of comparable events in English language history. So finding the right language for that. And also some of the novel makes use of the Jeju language as well. So I had to do a sort of crash course in the grammar and vocabulary of Jeju language as compared to standard Korean.
Yes.
To convey it accurately in English as well.
And that actually answers one of our listeners actually posted a question, meaning, like, how did you deal with the Jeju dialect and the process of translating those parts? Because even for people who speak just the standard version of Korean, it's challenging to sometimes even understand. It sounds like almost a different language. There are big differences.
Yes, definitely. I foolishly thought it would be more or less intelligible if you understood Korean, but completely different. And it's a lot more research and parsing to really figure out.
Indeed. Well, thanks for sharing about a little bit of insight into this aspect of your translating. So with Han Kang being the first South Korean author to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, how do you see your role as a translator in bringing Korean literature to the global stage? Because let's face it, I mean, many people would not have access or the capacity to be able to read Han Kang's works in the original language, in Hangul, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's what's so important about the work of a translator. Obviously, this huge win is a testament to the work that so many translators, not only those of us who have worked on Han Kang's novels into English, but the translators all over the world who have brought a language that is not so commonly spoken. Even in the diaspora, you only have so many people who can access the original text. So the translator becomes sort of the person who puts these great novelists on the map and who opens the door for so many people around the world to access these stories that otherwise they would never have heard and would never have had a chance to shape their idea of what Korean literature is.
Yes. I thoroughly agree with what you just said. I mean, it's not obviously just you, but the work of all the translators out there bringing Korean literature to the global stage. So some translators, they have said in media outlets and articles that they themselves contacted, publishers, sometimes without support, and, that maybe only a few Korean writers have received such aid or support. So maybe if we can also get a glimpse into your thought process, your opinion about the current challenges that translators face in getting, enough support. What do you think?
Yes, I definitely think that support for translators is a huge challenge and a huge barrier. I think that especially for the past few years in Korea, it's been harder for publishers and other organizations to support diverse writers and translators, new writers and new translators. I think everyone has kind of been a bit hesitant to chances. And I really do hope that this Nobel win for Han Kang opens up the possibility that more genres, more forms, more writers of all backgrounds will be translated and will have that support that we have seen in the past for, a select few writers and translators of Korean literature.
Indeed, opening doors and opportunities. And now, Paige, I want to shift the focus to you more. Can you share your story of how you became a translator, particularly why Korean literature? Because I'm sure you had a choice, but consciously, why did you choose Korean literature?
Yes, so many parts of that story were just fortunate accidents. I went to ask a history teacher in high school for a suggestion on a language to learn on my own time. And he recommended an East Asian language as it would be a big challenge and very different from English. And I chose Korean as he recommended it as maybe the easiest one to learn to read, at least.
The Hangul, yes.
And he turned out to be right, but learning the rest of the language turned out to be like a lifelong challenge and interest for me. So when I had the chance to first come to Korea on a Fulbright grant, I was here feeling kind of isolated from people around me, but still able to connect with literature as I had always done in the US as well. Right. So I was reading a lot during that time, and I wanted to share with friends back home what kinds of things I was reading, because none of the stuff that was in the bookstores here matched the few works of Korean literature and translation that were on the bookshelves in the US. So there were so many new stories, and I was so excited to talk about them that in the end I thought maybe it's just quicker if I just translate them myself.
So that's how you began. I love how you said it, a series of fortunate accidents. But of course, those fortunate accidents took you on this path, and here we are today speaking to you. So amazing. Translating literature, I'm sure, is, as you said earlier, tough, sometimes almost suffocating. As powerful and haunting as, Han Kang's work, it must kind of impact you personally, though, I'm sure. I mean, how have her stories or her works affected you personally and professionally, leaving something with you?
Yes, definitely. I think having read her works, both in Korean and in translation, it's just inspired. I originally was a writer myself. I started out in fiction writing.
Right.
And I was inspired to be as brave and as undaunted as Han Kang has been in all of her works. And professionally, I think that extends to, using even the platform of a translator to talk about these events that have been covered up or censored for so much of Korean history. As an American, obviously, I feel that I have a responsibility too to mention the U.S.'s role in a lot of this history. And I think I'm emboldened to do that because of how brave Han Kang has been in her work.
Brave and undaunting, as you say. And I recently read a New York Times article where you were quoted as saying that, if I had to paraphrase that, that she has repeatedly stood against Korea's censorship and culture of face saving. And each time she pushed back against attempts to silence her with stronger and more unwavering works. And, when I read that, it really resonated with me and it really touched me. So can you expand just a little bit more on that?
Yes. As you were discussing earlier, there was a kind of cultural creators blacklist during the administration. And so within Korea, I think a lot of writers maybe felt afraid or wouldn't write about certain subject matter because of the fear of ending up on a list like that.
Yes.
But, following 소년이 온다 or Human Acts, Han Kang writes a novel like We Do Not Part, right? Instead of shying away, being silenced into writing about other content, I think it just made her vision even clearer and it made her writing even sharper and more dedicated to uncovering the truth.
So true. And going back to a little bit of your personal work as we approach the end of our conversation, I have so many questions for you, but as someone who translates Korean literature into English, how do you approach what I think is so difficult, the task of conveying these cultural nuances while kind of ensuring that the text, really does resonate with a global, wider audience?
Yes, I think it's one of the biggest challenges of translating is trying to convey so much and having a lot of background knowledge or background experience with this culture and this language.
Yes.
Right, you can't convey 100% of everything in English if you want the work to still resonate and to still hold its literary value. So I had to kind of approach translating cultural elements less from a standpoint of explaining everything and more from presenting and trusting that I can evoke some empathy, even if I can't evoke full understanding of every nuance, some empathy from the global readers who will encounter it.
Well, I look forward to reading your translated work because once again, for the masses, available January 2025. But Paige, thank you so much for translating not just her work, but your translation work in general in English so that many more people have access to writers of Korean literature. So thank you so much for being on air with us as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Everybody, this was Paige Aniyah Morris, one of the co-translators for We Do Not Part, 작별하지 않는다. The song that you're listening to right now, this is 어떻게 이별까지 사랑하겠어, 널 사랑하는 거지 by 악동 musician. Apparently, this is what Han Kang actually listened to while she was writing the draft of this book. So she would listen to this, tears streaming, and she would do her work.
너의 풍경 흑백거리 가운데 넌 뒤돌아본다 그때 알게 되었어 난 널 떠날 수 없는 걸 우리 사이에 그 어떤 힘든 일도 이별보단 버틸 수 있는 것들이었죠 어떻게 이별까지 사랑하겠어 널 사랑이라는 이유로 서로를 포기하고 찢어질 것 같지 아파할 수 없어 난 짙은 도로 위에 걸음을 보겠다 아무 말 없는 듯 화 나누며 주마등이 길을 비춘 먼 곳을 본다 그때 알게 되었어 난 더 갈 수 없단 걸 한 발 한 발 이별에 가까워질수록 너와 맞잡은 손이 사라지는 것 같죠 어떻게 이별까지 사랑하겠어 널 사랑하는 거지 사랑이라는 이유로 서로를 포기하고 찢어질 것 같지 아파할 수 없어 난 어떻게 너를 이후에 우리 바다처럼 깊은 사랑이 난 마를 때까지 기다리는 게 이별일 텐데 어떻게 너를 이후에 우리 바다처럼 깊은 사랑이 난 마를 때까지 기다리는 게 이별일 텐데
All right, it's now time for Showbiz Buzz. We have Michael in the house. Yay!
Yay!
So weird to see you in hour number 2, but
it's better for me because I could sleep
in a little.
another hour.
너무 솔직하신 거 아니에요?
근데 사람은
방송인데.
잠을 잘 자야 돼요.
그렇죠.
그렇잖아요. We have to.
그렇죠.
You know.
Yes.
I mean, we have to sleep. We have to sleep someday. You know. 계속 자라고요?
계속 주무시면 오지 말라고. She's like,
oh my
continue
God,
sleeping.
Snap.
Yes. So,
anyways.
what do you have for us?
Some interesting news. 그 제시 아시죠? 제시 rapper singer Jessie.
Jessie. Oh,
yeah.
that.
And I'm her big fan, and something, you know, I guess this is an unfortunate incident that happened.
Yes.
Rapper singer Jessie's fan got assaulted after a photo request. So this took place just a month ago. So a man who claims to be a fan of, you know, Jessie was assaulted last month by someone in the singer's group after asking her for a photo. The victim explained in a recent interview that after introducing himself as a fan and requesting a photo, Jessie declined, you know, which is fine, you know.
That's her right to do so, though.
Yeah. So he apologized for bothering her, and he was, you know, turning to leave, but a person near her suddenly struck him in the face. So According to Jessie's agency, they later clarified that the perpetrator was a Chinese man unknown to the artist and was an acquaintance of a producer in the group that night. So, nobody knows what really happened that night. Only the victim and Jessie and others would know. But it is an unfortunate incident. So Jessie made a formal apology on her social account recently for this incident. Yeah, well, very unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
I didn't know what had happened, but I did see on social media she had like a blacked out page, and then she had posted kind of her version of what had happened. And then I was like, oh, what happened? And then I looked it up.
Yeah.
Right.
So apparently this was a huge news for Jessie's fans. So. Anyways, yeah.
Yes, very, very unfortunate. I mean, once again, he asked for a photo. She said no, and he was about to leave, so there was no need for violence, right? Yes.
No need. Yeah. Anyways, after next issue, Netflix is coming back with Squid Game Season 2 pretty soon.
Yes, it's coming up.
It's coming up, and I'm so excited about that. But ahead of the release of the new season, Netflix has opened a Squid Game The Experience, basically like a live exhibition platform in New York, Manhattan, recently. So this is like a place where you can go and just have fun for like 1 hour, playing various games that appear on the show. So that includes the famous red light, green light, or 무궁화 꽃이 피었습니다, as we say it.
Yes.
Yeah. So Netflix's VP, Josh Simon, said that Squid Game is still one of the most a popular show that came up on Netflix.
I think a lot of people started watching Netting because of the show.
Because of Squid Game.
Right. A lot of people signed up.
Yeah. So 265 million people watched it. That's like the top record for
it is.
Netting. Yeah.
Right. So definitely, I mean, I just wish they had come out with 2 a little bit sooner, because kind of to ride the wave.
Exactly. And
there's such a big
think
gap.
there was some delays from what I am aware of. So, but anyhow, they are trying to basically bring back that momentum by setting up the experiential chambers or exhibition halls, bringing people together to remind them of what Squid Game used to be like.
Right.
And we all remember back, I think it was Halloween last year in the US at least, Squid Game costumes were one of the most popular costumes.
Yeah, I think that was it 2 Halloweens? It was such a while ago now.
Yeah. 2
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Everybody had that burgundy wine jumpsuit.
And that mask.
And then the green, training set.
Exactly. So Squid Game is not just about the video itself, but it's also about the merch. You know? And the merch sales is pretty important for Netting as well. Yeah, so anyways, they are at Netting. Netflix is planning to open up additional experiential, platforms, not in the U.S. as well as Australia and Korea. Korea early next year, so that's pretty soon. So I'm looking forward to that.
They're really going on the full promo thing. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next item.
Next, this is a data that I got from Spotify. Streaming of K-pop surged by 362% globally over 5 years.
Wow.
So that's between 2018 and 2023.
Yes.
So according to the data from Spotify, K-pop streams increased by 362% in the global market, 182% in the United States, and a whopping 423% in Southeast Asia during that period. So
that's amazing.
So we can really feel from this data that K-pop is gaining popularity globally. And U.S. leads the list of countries with the most K-pop listeners, followed by Indonesia, the Philippines, Japan, Mexico, and Thailand.
Yes.
Yeah. Spotify has a Billions Club, the so-called Billions Club, which recognizes tracks with over 1 billion streams. So that's 10억 회. 이상 스트리밍을 한 트랙들을 인정을 해주는 건데 so and it has welcomed several K-pop songs like Jimin, BTS Jimin's Like Crazy, Blackpink Lisa's Money, and Blackpink's How You Like That. But most notably, 7 by BTS's Jungkook reached 1 billion streams in just 108 days of its release, making it the fastest song in Spotify's history to join the club. So just wanted to put it out there. Yeah, it's K-pop is going out there. And we've been talking about K-pop and its popularity for years now. And, it doesn't seem to be going away. So that's amazing.
Well, thank goodness. I like the fact that it's continuing. It wasn't just a flash in the pan, as they say. 그냥 지나가는 트렌드가 아니라.
그러니까요.
계속되는 phenomenon.
앞으로도 계속 되기를.
Yes. That's what we're, of course, hoping for. I mean, we went from, K-pop to K-drama, and then now we have K-literature. So amazing. So happy.
I get the chills. I feel like I'm living in the golden age of Korea.
Right. Like even one of our messages from Choi Hee-sung-nim says, I feel as good as if I've won the prize myself. I mean, I think that's how people are feeling.
Yeah, but I definitely feel that. Like when I heard the news, I was like crying.
At first, everyone was like, "What? Really?" Yeah, it was like
first
unbelievable.
I couldn't believe it either.
Exactly.
But it was like, oh my goodness, this really happened.
It sunk in, and it was just like,
I'm glad that I'm alive in this era. Like everything is, Korea is gaining momentum.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Well, we're going to call it a wrap. It was great to see you in this hour. And of course, we'll check in with you next week as well. So thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
And with that, we are ready to wrap up our Monday morning together. And since we've been talking about books throughout this morning, how about this one? 기억 한 권의 책 by Wonwi. This is a song request from Benny. So enjoy. Have a beautiful day. Bye, everybody.
한 장씩 아름다운 일들을 시간이 지나 이 순간을 영원히 사랑해 기억의 끝 어딘가에 있을 첫 페이지 끝을 볼 때쯤 젖어든 바람 떨어질 때쯤 감싸는 빗물 아직 남은 내일을 잠시 들어줘 그 밤은 널 닮아 내일 찾아오고 나의 밤은 널 따라 아침을 맞이해 나는 온통 너라면 너도 어떨까 기억 속 한 권의 책 끝에 맞이한 우리들의 지나친 우리들의 이야기 전부 놓지 않고 안고 끌고 와 말해줄 수 있는 걸 오늘따라 슬픈 우리 사랑 마지막인 오늘까지 기억해 그동안 사랑했던 억자의 왜 끝을 볼 때쯤 물어본 지진 떨어질 때쯤 전하지 못한 아직 남은 내 얘기를 잠시 들어줘 그 밤은 너